Greetings, everybody. This is James Gilliland with As You Wish Talk Radio and ECETI Stargate. So much to cover right now. I mean, the world is freaking going nuts right now. We've got massive solar holes, coronal holes opening up, streaming energy, and we've got X-class flares. The Schumann resonance is totally whited out, and reality is flipping all over the place. So it's don't think you're crazy. It may not be you. So anyway, just you know, practice that loving detachment and don't beat yourself up right now. Everybody's stuff's coming up. A lot of people, some people are owning it and healing it, and some people are projecting and blaming. Unfortunately, the masses usually project and blame. So don't take it personal and just spend some quality time with yourself out in nature. That's your best way to get through these times and prepare on every level, emotionally, physically, spiritually, every level, basically. But on that note, I've got an awesome guest. I've been wanting to get him on the show, and we finally got an opening. And David Clements, and he's an interesting guy. He has so much going on. I don't even know where to start, but he studied and worked as a professional theoretical physicist and mathematician in some of the world's leading and prestigious academic institutions, including Cambridge and Oxford universities, before becoming involved in free energy, remote viewing, and extraterrestrial contact. The previous research David was involved in was developing superstring models, a mainstream fundamental quantum theory of particles as vibrating string objects in magnetic backgrounds, and advanced models extended electromagnetism. God, my voice is, I've got like, what do you call it? Fog. I got all that fog from the volcano. My throat's not working. Anyway, he's got, he has all kinds of backgrounds in electromagnetism and from enhanced space-time backgrounds. And he worked with seminal inventors such as Tom Bearden, John Bedini, including collaborative work during postdoctoral research position in Scotland. Right, our family's from there, which also included appearing in a documentary with them called Energy from the Vacuum. This documentary was an symbol of researchers and inventors from around the world, featuring their findings and discoveries. The current research David is involved in is developing and discovering principles and applications within the field he calls living energy physics, a new concept of matter and fields as generated holographic forms from source intelligence. He's also had extensive experiences with higher dimensional beings, while alongside this developing his inner bridge and synergy with the higher self for over 20 years. David works with these highly evolved beings to develop, both living energy technologies and to provide activations, meditations, information for those wishing to develop their own bridge with higher and source, higher intelligence and source. And at the center of this is the infinity point galaxy, a sacred point that each of us has our own sacred direct connection with the infinite source intelligence within. All right, got through that. Without any further ado, I want to bring David on the show. If you see me swinging at stuff, that's because we've got these no-see-ums here in Hawaii and mosquitoes, and they wait until I come on the show, and then all of a sudden they're like in your face. I don't know who's sending them, but they will be gone here soon. But anyway, welcome to the show, David.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, James. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's great to meet you as well, finally, because I've followed your work on and off in bits and pieces. I think particularly, at the same time I followed Michael's work, Michael Sala's work as well. And we certainly live in interesting times right now, that is for sure.
Yeah, Michael's really been under the gun. When you're on the forefront of
Yeah.
this work, you're going to get hit, by these entities, whatever you want to call them, the demiurge, archons, demonic, and a lot of people aren't who they say they are in the UFO community, and they're actually working with these energies. So
Mm.
when you figure out who they are, then that energy comes after you. And I've seen this with so many people, and I've also noticed a lot of people are checking out, and their life force energy is diminishing rapidly right now because they're on the wrong side of
Mm.
the fence. But I mean, that's a whole different subject. But I think I'll let you just take off and oh, one more thing. Everybody say a prayer for Japan. I think the last show we said watch Japan. It's probably going to have a pretty big quake, and they
Mm.
just had a 7.4.
Yes.
So keep an eye on that. There's going to be a lot more to come, and so keep them in our prayers. And on that note, David, welcome to the show.
Okay, yeah, thanks again, James. Yeah, as I say, it's very cool to be here, and I'm sure we'll have some really cool discussions. We had a chat, I think, maybe a week, 2 weeks ago, I think, over the phone. We had a really
Yeah,
cool 3 hour chinwag against we had all sorts of things. It was really fun chatting about that stuff with you. So yeah, well, hello to all of your audience and everyone who's listening as well. And it's great to be able to share this information far and wide. And really my ethos about doing all of this is absolutely about self-empowerment. There's nothing more important than people going inwards, understanding themselves, learning about themselves, and connecting within and realizing the immense unlimited creative power they have there. And that all comes from my perspective, from what I call the source level intelligence or the creator. There's so many different words that people choose to describe it. But as the beings that we are, with the soul, the soul setup, higher self setup, that's a whole discussion in of itself. That we have this very powerful bridge, which I just refer to as the Sacred Heart Gateway, or the Infinity Point Gateway, which is our direct access to the source intelligence itself. And every human being has this, but most human beings are completely unaware that it's even there. And so, there has been this historical dichotomy that people have gone through this sort of deep sleep where they think they're just this bumbling feather being buffeted around in the wind, swung that way, swung this way, with nothing much to offer or be other than just what they think and what they're told they are, from anyone outside, which of course is utter nonsense. And now in the awakening, part of that unfolding process as I see it, is very much people learning to realize this whole opening, this connection within is really opening up, and it's driving people's stuff forward and out, because that's the cover, that's all the mud, the minutiae, all the stuff that keeps it sort of closed down and keeps you unaware of it. But as that comes off, as the mud releases and comes away, you're going to feel a lot lighter, a lot higher. And I remember the teams were describing to me, it's a little bit like you get a shift forward and then the mud comes up, you feel like you're taking steps back. That gets cleared if you take the clearing steps, and then you shift upwards again. And it's almost like a zigzag that goes up like that. And you keep going and going. And eventually you clear yourself of so much that those access gateways, whatever you want to call them, are so fully open. Now you're literally emanating such a powerful level of source intelligence, your higher self intelligence, whatever you want to call it. And now you're moving in the domain or the territory of where the masters were, where these amazing beings, ETs, Arcturians, Pleiadians are already at. And in my experience with them, that's one of the core things. And in fact, and I've said it many times, that the Arcturians, who are renowned for their just fantastical, I mean, I don't know what else to say, innovations, their living energy technology, although I don't like to use the word technology, but that's just,
yeah,
a fair reference, is so advanced, and they work with living energetics. And I was working with them one time, and they were trying to help me understand a certain coil system that they wanted me to build. And I was kind of struggling a little bit. And I was getting a bit frustrated because the information stopped and the flow stopped. I thought, oh man, I really wanted to get this on the road, And the Arcturians came through and they said, well, what's happening now is that you're trying to approach this from a mind-based point of view. Now, you
Yeah.
cannot perceive what we're trying to give you through the mind. It isn't capable yet of perceiving it like this. What you need to do is come back down into your heart center and see it from your heart intelligence. Then you will understand what you're being shown. And because I had such a lot of admiration in a way for what the Arcturians have done and the level of how their ships, the stuff they can do, going from one galaxy to another within apparently a split second. I mean, it's phenomenal stuff. For them to say that really helped me open my sort of perception to, wow, heart intelligence, that core heart intelligence, and this is, some time ago, was really, really the place to be. And so I've had this journey of working with the Pleiadians, working with the Arcturians, and I call the team, which includes other beings that have come through from Andromeda and other places as well. And some of them are coming from other galaxies as well. And I've asked them for their names sometimes, but they say it, I can't even pronounce it. So I'm not even going to. I don't think it's even pronounceable in human language. So it's, but there's a lot of active presence by very advanced beings from other galaxies here as well, because this is a huge event we're undergoing right now. It's not just our little tiny little bit of space, 2/3 out the way from the center of the galaxy, this is quite
Yeah.
huge.
And they have a lot of consonants in their names. Like,
Oh yeah,
I mean, you
right.
can't, it is, some of them are unpronounceable, and
Yeah,
they don't care, really. They don't care if
that,
you,
yes, that's
it's more
true.
of a frequency and an energy they want you to connect in, and they're more of a
Yes,
collective too.
yes, yes.
So they really don't care. I was working with this scientist, and to kind of give credence to what you're just saying. And I love what he said. He says, science comes to you. It does not, you're
Mhm.
not going to learn it in books. A lot of that's
Yes,
recycled ignorance,
yes,
and
yes.
science comes to you. And he created a device. I mean, it was this fit in your hand. It was the size of a small pie plate. It had 9 coils, and each coil put out 25,000 watts. And he had other just smaller backwards. I call them dinosaur projects. He had his own little flying saucer that he could fly around, and we have all this technology. It's crazy. But I
Mhm.
sat in a room, and there were several people. A guy named Nassim was there, Walter Rosenthal, the Rocket Man, this other guy, I try to remember his name. There's 3 or 4 other guys in there. These are some of the top minds, and one of the guys didn't disappear. But uh but anyway, they were just going, this makes no sense.
Right.
It makes no sense to them whatsoever.
Yeah.
And mainly because the science we've been taught is wrong. And even some of our best minds that have access to the other stuff are still kind of working in the dinosaur ages.
Oh
But
yes. Yeah.
I do know what we have. I know we have magnetic light tables, med beds. We have all that stuff.
Mm.
And I know it's coming out, but the main, most of the masses think they're a body and a personality. They're a meat suit, basically, and
Right.
that's it. They don't realize, that they're a vast being existing on a vibrational continuum. There's more
Yeah.
levels all the way back
Yeah.
to the source, and so they're kind of clueless about this stuff. I mean, they still
Mm.
think you need gas. That's the only way to,
Right.
and tires. You don't even need tires.
Mm.
But and then you have the hidden tech, and then you have levels of integrity, having high levels,
Yeah.
moral integrity levels,
Yeah.
and uh, and he said, he found some things that he said, no, he just got rid of it. He said, we're not ready yet for this. We can't let this out, on the
Yeah.
planet.
Yeah.
And there's several people like that I've run across that are in the know, and they've been involved in a lot of these projects,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
that we're not supposed to talk about, but which is
Yeah.
all coming out now. And uh, it's amazing. And one of my dreams is to get a group together, like people like you and some other scientists, and create all of these healing formulas and technologies. I know where they are. I know who has them, into one space, and just create a major healing center, for people. It's almost like a
Mhm.
one-stop clear heal everything healing center. But and
Yeah.
and there'd be counseling, there'll be everything there, because you can heal somebody and they'll just recreate the same thing again. They
Yes.
don't clear the
Yeah.
pattern. But I know I got off track a little bit, but I just wanted to,
No, for sure.
yeah,
Listen,
to
really.
mention that because we got to get outside the box, or we're not going to figure any of
Yeah.
this out.
Well, to come back to what you were saying is a really interesting point, and I wanted to kind of springboard off of that if you're okay with that.
Sure.
And it comes back to the simplicity of the way that I was brought up in mainstream physics, and I was absolutely dead set. I wanted to be a mainstream theoretical physicist. I thought that was the way to peel back the boundaries and understand the inner workings of the universe. But pretty soon during my PhD, I realized something is not right here. And that's at the same time I connected with Tom Bearden, because I was kind of, intuitively, not knowing I was being intuitive at the time, but, part of me was saying, hey, go to type in these keywords in the computer and see what you find, and that's how I came across Tom. But with my work with the Arcturians and other beings like that, and with my own investigations, this is exactly right, that the intelligence of the heart center, the perceptibility from the heart center, what it has shown me is that, in fact, when you look at mainstream physics, what it says is, here is a whole Legoland. You can mix and match the Lego pieces as much as you want, but you can't change the Lego pieces. You can't swap them out for anything else. This is what you've got. So be as creative and as cool as you want. That's all you get. Now, that's where the problem is, because you're now confined to a tiny, tiny, small playpen of what we just call the material realm only.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, if you just perceive in those ways, in those terms, you are never going to get access to anything else, because you are locking your perception, you're locking your manifestation of your outer reality into a materially locked configuration. So what you get is, it's like, when they talk about, oh, you can't get something for nothing and yada, yada, yada. Well, in that realm, that perception seems to be true, because people actually create it and feed it back to themselves because they're locked in that loop.
Yeah.
But I always say to people, here's the fundamental thing. Where did it all come from? If I always say to physicists, it's like, well, if energy can't be transformed, transduced, created or what have you, then where did it all come from in the first place?
Yeah.
That would have to mean that the entire universe, all the energy inside it, was a universal constant that couldn't be changed. How much is that, and who set it that way? Now, that's just a playful little idea for people to have a mull on, but essentially, when you go deeper, you realize that all matter is simply a sort of magnetic condensation, if you like, or a compression of this source intelligence in manifesting itself in different ways, and it can be changed. But to change it, you need to be at a level of consciousness where you can access that. And that's a key point, because, and I think it's set out in such a beautiful way, because you can't have a bunch of cavemen who were suddenly finding access to incredibly high energy systems and going, woohoo, it would probably create a bit of a mess.
Yeah,
So,
here's a nuclear bomb. That'll take care of it.
yeah, right.
I'll get rid of the T-Rex forever. You too, though. But
Yeah, I mean, so I think in a way, part of it is that it's up to humanity to learn to go inside to get at that level so that they can access all of the goodies that underlie the stage of what we call the material world. And so there you find, unlimited energy creation. You can lens it, you can focus it, you can channel it, you can do all sorts of things with it. As long as you understand and your consciousness is at that level. And this is what the Arcturians were trying to tell me. They said, no, look, you are trying to form a living field system, but you're trying to approach it from a materialistic, intellectual way of doing things.
Yeah.
So you've got to come out of that. You've got to come into your heart perception and literally perceive the reality of what is really going on behind it. Then you have access. Then you can key into it. And that's the problem, because as you know, physicists and mathematicians are not the most heart-centered people on the planet. So it's a tricky dichotomy, because they keep going at things mental, and wonder why they keep hitting the wall. Where you're hitting the wall of your own perceptive limitations. That's what's happening. And so, yeah, there is this I think I was quite fortunate in a way. And when I say fortunate, I think, everybody designs their lives before they come in to a great degree. But I had this experience when I went to John Benny's lab. And that's the first time I experienced the living energetic, the intelligent nature of the energy that was being emanated from the systems that he was making. So to give a quick example to your audience, so I had this wonderful privilege to meet John. He was such a cool guy, he was a barrel of laughs. He really was. He was so cool. And anyway, so he wanted to show me his running. He had a series of sort of helix wound coils, and they were all running magnets rotating around, and he would feed the energy into batteries one way, and he'd be getting more out than he was putting in. Anyway, so I went into this room, and it was an open door room. It's like an opening where two doors should be, but weren't. They were taken off. And there was an open, it was like a unit within his main industrial unit, so it was kind of open. So, but as soon as I walked through the threshold of the seeming boundaries of this little unit he had, the energy it went really high. I mean, super high. And I walked in and I thought, whoa, because I was very sensitive at that time. And I thought, what is that? And John looked at me, thought, what's wrong with you? Because I'm not sure if he could feel the energy, but he kind of really knew his way around building these. Mm-hmm. And anyway, I walked back out and I walked back in. I said, I'm feeling the massive change. And he sort of smiled and laughed and said, come on, I'll show you some more stuff. But what struck me is that this energy would stay within the confines of the room. Even though there was an opening, if it was just an unintelligent fluid, it would easily just wafted out into the room and just filled every space that it wanted to.
Yeah.
But it didn't. There was an intelligent selection of what it was doing, which is a very different kettle of fish. And this very much lends itself to my experiences of having, like I've spoken to other interviewers as well about the bilocation I do with going to meet with inner earth beings and the Arcturians and so forth. Now, the Arcturians in particular, when I go on those ships, so you bilocate to the ships, the environment is living energy. It's not static, stagnant, technological fields. These are living, almost fluid, intelligent fields. Very different from what we're used to in, everyday worlds of what we see around us. It's interactive, it's intelligent. You can literally interact with the body of the ship. It's a very, very powerful and living intelligent system. And that's how they do. You go up there, there's no electronic panels, there's nothing that we see like down here at all. It's very different because they work on a conscious level that's so very high. They understand that their holding consciousness is creating their entire environment around them, and they can bend it, change it, do as they wish with it, morph their ships, you name it. I mean, the list goes on, it really does. And I believe that's where we're going to as a species, a human race. We are breaking free of the stricture of material paradigm, of rules and regulations, can't do's, can do's. No, you can only do none of that. We're lifting the veils to realize that energy is a fluid living essence. Let's just call it that, because there's no other English words really to get to the nitty gritty of it. That responds to us exactly. But because humanity has been such a state of self-constricture and self cannot do, can't do, mustn't do, we literally recreate those same rules and regulations on the energy that we live in, and so it repeats that to us, and so we feel like we're locked into this third dimensional cage, and it's like, oh God, how do we do anything in here? Well, it's you've kind of gripped yourself in, but the good thing is you can ungrip yourself from it as well. That's the cool thing. So no one's holding you there but ourselves, and that's a key thing to understand, definitely.
Yeah, I think like you're talking about bilocation and phasing out, and all those things are really part of our natural, source, gifts that we all have within us that need to be unlocked. And I'm going to do a lecture in Colorado. I'm going to show a lot of this. We actually photograph a lot of this happening where you can see, I told one photographer, I said, okay, I'm going to go out. I'll tell you when. I go now, and he takes a picture, and you can see me coming out of my body with my eyes open and my eyes are closed while I'm sitting there, And we have all of this documented, where people are phasing in and out and, going from energy and light bodies, back to a
Yes.
physical, and
Yes.
we all have that ability. And I just think my whole thing is creating a school, especially for the kids, that a lot of them
Mm.
already have these abilities, but they don't have anybody to help them understand it, and they freak out when things happen. And like it'd be like I don't want to say a Jedi, more of a spiritual teaching school that would tell people how to use these abilities in a positive direction, and really anchor in universal law, as a
Yeah.
foundation.
Well, who doesn't want a lightsaber,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah,
Yeah, I agree. I feel that that's one of the big things. And in my personal path and my investigations as well, that's the central theme is unlearning what you have learned. And I
exactly.
think that's a phrase within some film somewhere. Maybe Yoda said it somewhere or something. But it's very true because from the word go, and I say to people that, when you look at a baby, a newborn baby, it's so wide open and its perceptibility is so powerful. It sees things in the room that you just can't see. It'll be
Hmm.
talking to things that you think, well, what are you talking to? And there's lots of other things that go on there. And most people will dismiss that as, oh, it's just a young baby, it's finding its way and everything. But I do believe their level of perception is so much higher. But when they get into, school and other things and, start getting crammed down with all the rules and regulations, do's and don'ts, that perceptibility. And that's what happened to me. I was very imaginative, very artistic as a child, and funnily enough, I didn't have a mathematical bone in my body. I didn't get it,
Yeah.
didn't understand it all. It was a real switch for me. But I was just away with imagination all the time. I just loved, the possibility of what if. I couldn't stand limitation or being told, you can't think like that, you can't do that, whatever. And then something switched and changed, and then I went really deeply into mathematics and physics, and there seemed to be a marrying of the two that seemed to happen between the sort of the intellectual applicator side and the intuitive perceiver initiator side, if you like, so that there was this balance that started to occur. And I realized that, as I was in science, everybody around me was just really just left brain. It was all intellect. It was all just a big calculation or a problem to solve. But I thought, there's no creativity here. No one's investigating the what ifs, the possibilities. What if that's wrong? What if this is right over here? And so there's a lot of that goes on. And I feel that that's kind of at a point where I had to leave academia because, and it was during the point where I was collaborating with John and Tom very heavily. And I thought, because my job at the time was to try to formulate a model, a mathematical model of how this stuff was working. And I just, it can't be done. It
Yeah, yeah.
cannot be done with mathematical language because mathematics itself is a structural language which applies very well for structural events, but has nothing to say about living field fluid energetics. It's not set up for that. It doesn't, because it inherently is a fixed structure. I mean, the number system, they're all fixed number systems.
Yeah.
They're not, they don't have a quantum fluidity about them. They're fixed and they're structural. So like I say to people, it's really good at predicting, sort of stiff mechanical linear systems like that. But you move away from that and you go into the fundamentals of, living fluid systems, it all falls to pieces and it has nothing to say.
I think Einstein said that, didn't he? Like, alas, I'm without all mathematics to touch upon forever, or something like that. Or
Yeah,
every
yeah.
every real physicist. I always tell people, every priest, every scientist, everything. Eventually, you're going to have two options. Either you're going to go insane, trying to capsulize everything into your book and your view of the universe,
Right.
or you're going to let go of it. You know.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely recommend people do the latter. That's,
Yeah,
that's,
would you say there's like, I try to explain it simply to people. I tell them there's a vibrational continuum, and it goes from consciousness to light to energy to mass. Sound is in there somewhere. I'm not exactly sure, somewhere at the top. But and then basically everything is just like you said, condensed consciousness and energy. It's not really physical. We think it's physical, But again, until you fully embrace this and understand this and get rid of all your trauma and social engineering and all the other stuff, you're
Yes.
not going to be able to work within this field.
Well, you know, one of the things that's interesting, I always say to people, and it comes down to intent as well, because one of the things that became very clear to me working with the ARCs and other teams is that energy itself can form packets, and within those packets, it has intent coding, you know, in itself. And they're saying these are vibrational complexes, but they always, you know, the one thing I got to learn from them is they're saying, well, you know, about talking about the frequency, everything, but they said what a frequency is a vibration of something, and the frequency is how many oscillations per second, or, you know, or a count of measure of frequency that way. But they're
Mhm.
saying that is very important, but they're saying even more fundamental, what is it that is actually vibrating? That's
Yeah.
another key thing. So there is frequency, but there's also the essence that is vibrating to give rise to the frequency of something. And they're saying that's where you get lower and lower and lower, not lower as in, you know, but you get deep down into the fundamentals. And they're saying that this is the thing. They're saying when you look at matter, atoms, you know, subatomic particles, all those kind of things, these are sort of condensed forms of energy that contain intent codings to behave in a particular way. So like bump on this when you hit it, do this when you do this. So they have almost a sort of set up set of instructions in that in a sense we are part of making as creator beings to get matter to behave in, as we see it, a very dense, you know, with very basic properties of momentum. You hit a wall, it's going to hit you back, it's going to hurt. Just simple things like that. But then we know, for example, like I know you have a wealth of experience where, you know, ships can just seemingly move through material objects and just disappear without doing. They can phase through. They can
Mhm.
change the nature of the energy behavior of the fundamental packets that make up the subatomics, the atoms, all that stuff. So they can mold it, change it, sculpt it, do whatever they want to do with it. And that's an exciting possibility because it shows us we're not in this caged domain of, oh, no, sorry, you can't go there. There are limitations. There are no limitations. It's all energy sculpting. But do you have the conscious tools to be able to sculpt the matter, the reality, everything that you're in, and lens it or purpose it in a way that you want to use it or want to apply it? So these advanced ETs, they have that, and they've got it down to such an artistry, you know. They do these phenomenal things, you know.
Yeah, they use a lot more of the unified field than we do. They have access to it and use it. And I tell you what's interesting. I have it on video actually. A ship came in and it was sitting there and it divided into three different ships.
Ah, cool.
And and so then my mind starts going, okay, are they like time jumping and then jumping back, or are just recreating everything three times, or what? You know, I mean, my head's all going through that, and then I go, okay, well, wait a second. If I was on one of those ships and I looked across the way and I'm seeing myself on the other ship, what is that going to do to my head? You know, what is that?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
am I going to like that person?
Yes,
You know,
yes, yeah.
and it really messes. It really starts a big mind f. When you think
Yeah,
about this, it's
yeah,
like that kind of consciousness or advancement or whatever you want
yeah.
to call it that can morph a ship into three different ships with all the same
Yes,
crew
yes, yeah.
and do something like that. It's so far beyond. It's just beyond most
Mm.
people's ability to grasp. What would that be like?
And I think that's another key point because I believe that that is one of the unfoldings that humanity is actually being asked to go through. It's can you step by step let go of the rigidity of what you think is real, what you think is solid. Yes, that's defined. I'm familiar with that. That's my comfort blanket. All those kind of things. And can you move into a more fluid nature where you can see things slightly morphic, moving, starting to change? Because I feel that this is like a sort of a graduation in many ways, but one of the qualities of the graduation is learning to see energy no longer as a confined, very, you know, strictly behaved system of this is how it is and no more into, oh, it's changing now, it's going to luminesce, it's moving, it just disappeared. All those things that we would perceive as crazy, actually commonplace as you move up in higher consciousness, because matter cannot be held in such a highly densified state as you move up in consciousness, because the fields that confine them release, because you're now moving up into higher consciousness. It can't compress like that anymore. It's much more fluid, it's dynamic, it disappears, interchanges, morphs, does all these cool things. Exactly like what you were just describing then. So I think that's part of this, part of the very gentle, although not so gentle in some cases, movement or evolution that people are going through, because they're having and they're seeing some strange things and they don't necessarily know what to make of it. Well, I would sort of maybe suggest that one possibility, a very strong possibility, is that as if you're somebody who's working on yourself and you're really raising your connection with inside and raising the energy of your entire system, not just your physical body, all the fields and layers that make up you, you're going to start, matter's going to start changing and responding to you in different ways, and you're going to see phenomena which is initially you may think, oh my God, did that just happen? So I think that's definitely a big part of the puzzle here, definitely.
Yeah. Now, would that include timelines, or because obviously we were talking about that earlier, it wasn't on the show, but some things have been happening here that are just blowing my mind because I'm seeing different realities, different
Yeah.
timelines, and it's as real
Yes.
as if it happened,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it didn't happen.
Right.
And then I wake up in the morning and I go and check and I go, wait, none of that happened yet.
Yes. Yes.
Or something else intervened
Yeah.
completely. It's like the Mandela effect and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Something really big is going down where
Mm.
things are being altered, either going on different timelines, or events are they either did a time fold where we jump past that event, and or something. There's obviously something going on. I don't know exactly what it is, but I probably never will. Maybe one day I will. I don't know.
Well, it's the time aspect is a very fundamental thing in itself. And if one of the simple ways to look at it is a tree structure. So every branch, every split, everything, every eventual leaf on the end of a branch is an eventual event or possibility you might be traveling towards. And every time you change your frequency, your vibration, your energy, whatever you want to call it, you can literally hop onto another branch, and suddenly you're now open to a whole bunch of other possibilities, but you still retain the memory imprints of having been on the previous branch. So they're now overlaid with what you now have now. So you can see sort of, non-congruent memories fitting together, which that doesn't gel with that one. They don't go together. How do I have two or three separate memories coming together on there? So that's kind of how it's explained to me as well, and how I sort of felt intuitively talking with my teams, is that this is happening a lot because, they've said that that the timeline system as we have known it has been so constricted and so linearized in our perception that everything seemed to be so fixed. There was one arrow of time, it was moving in that direction, and everything just piled on top of that, one sequence after the other, and there wasn't much else. And as things began to jump, I mean, this is my perspective, of course, as things began to jump, suddenly people had the ability to shift from the left to the right, to flip another timeline, sometimes very subtle, sometimes quite big, and people would sometimes really notice overlays of different memories, but they would only be aware as if they were still on the same timeline. They wouldn't think, oh yeah, hey, I've just jumped a timeline here. It's not always that obvious. So I think that's a big point in case. And as the fluidity moves forward, so does the fluidity of our ability to jump on different timelines, because timelines are a little bit like a fractal sequence, a whole fractalization of all possibilities branching from a decision that we make. And we can follow any one of those. We could jump back, we can go forward. And like I said, the more fluid we become, the more easy and effortless to do that fluid jumping becomes. And that is a sort of, I think is the feeling that was described to me by my higher self was, it's just a case of just being at peace with that fluidity, letting go of the need for a structural, rigid, defined, yes, I'm okay, I'm following this, kind of thing, so that you can be at peace with when this sort of stuff happens, basically.
Yeah, it seems like it's the ego. There's an
Oh,
ego
yes,
and an
yeah,
alter
definitely.
ego. And a
Yeah.
lot of people are locked into, as I said before, your identity really takes a hit. When I
Mm.
was when I first was opening up, I had this being appearing to me. His name was Tasamara, and he was a kind of a fifth dimensional being. He's in the sixth now. He's evolved beyond that.
Mm.
And then I had my soul connect to me, which is like this Viking warrior or whatever. It's like, and and then he goes, "I'm you. I'm your original soul or whatever." And then Tasamara goes, "I'm your Christ self." And then these other beings on other dimensions are popping in saying, "I am you. You're my hands and feet." And I had a full blown, when that happened, I was having an identity crisis. I was just
Right.
really freaking out. And then Ezekiel came in and he just said, "It's all you."
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then I surrendered. I just let it go. I go, my need for identity and my ego perception of self is what's driving me nuts here. And all I
Yes.
have to do is surrender.
Yes.
All I have to do is, okay, I've had these other experiences. Do I need an identity?
Right.
The creator is the one consciousness within all consciousness on
Yes.
all planes and dimensions throughout the multiverse.
Mm.
And if I become one with that, then why do I need an identity? It's that's the
Yes.
conclusion I came to.
Yes.
And then so uh I just surrendered everything. And then that's why I was telling people, everybody's trying to become somebody,
Mm.
and you have to become nobody first. And then the
Yes.
somebody you become is multidimensional. It's beyond your imagination. But
Mm.
the somebody you're trying to become was set by social consciousness,
Yes.
by set. It was set by the enslavers and the other people. And
Mm.
so you're trying to get the fancy car, drink the right beer, get the bronze beauty in the bikini,
Right.
you're and have the big house and the boat and all the other stuff. And so you can become somebody, but you already are somebody.
Yes.
That's all that's the trap, basically. It's and we
Yeah.
we we walked right into it, and until
Mm.
we can practice that loving amusement and
Mm.
oh God, what's the other word? I call it loving detachment.
Yeah.
Those are two things we're really gonna have to master in the coming
Yes.
days. But because people are, on this level or the physical level here, I'm just watching people losing it. They're
Yeah.
not doing well with these energies that are coming in. Most of them are projecting and blaming, and they're
Mm.
taking this victim level to an all-time low. And
Yes. Yeah.
it's really crazy. And I don't want to focus on that, just as an observation. But I just been going, I just look at them and I don't get caught up into it. I go, you don't know who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your whole problem is you don't know who you are. Why
Yeah.
are you trying to become this blue-haired, purple-haired, whatever, or this, whatever, and I'm the savior of all victims, and I'm this and it's just like,
Mm.
what, when you realize that people are on this victim, savior, persecutor triangle. They're all in
Mm.
this little merry-go-round.
Yes.
And until you realize that and break away from, I have to be a savior or I have to be the persecutor or I've been a victim, until you can break away from all that, you're on that merry-go-round and you're not going to get
Yeah.
off. And I think it's so
Mm.
important right now, the work you're doing is because they turn to science, for the answer. And now science is going in a direction of, it doesn't matter because it isn't matter.
They're right.
It
Literally and figuratively.
yeah, we're going into that direction. So hopefully the other people that are locked in the intellect and their mental bodies and social engineering can take that step. But I mean, I love science, real science.
Yeah.
When I went to college, I took physics, I took chemistry and psychology and philosophy, and I got kicked out of everything. Got kicked out of
That's
everyone.
funny.
They
That's funny.
some of the teachers say I'm giving you an F. So they said there's no reason for you to come here anymore.
All
And
right.
I go, why? I go, why? I was asking the questions you were asking. Where
Yeah.
does it come from? Who
Yes.
who there's got to be some intelligence
Yeah.
and that created all this stuff. There's got to be a design. Where did it come from? And they got really angry. And then philosophy and psychology, when I started talking about past life trauma as being where a lot of people's issues are, and I wrote a whole paper on past lives and all the evidence of it and why people have phobias and things they should never have, like some guy that's living in Africa in the middle of the desert. He's never seen water or an ocean or anything else, has a fear of drowning. You know,
Mm.
where'd that come from? Or child
Yeah.
prodigies, can pick an instrument and play it and things
Yeah.
like that. But I've had all of these things about where people were thrown to the lions, so
Mm.
they have a deep allergic reaction to cats, because
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah.
And as soon as you clear that, it goes away. It's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got kind of tossed out of every one of them.
It's interesting because that's a big thing that my teams and my higher self have specifically highlighted in my process, my path as well. Because I always say to people that, there's one of the things that came to me, and I'm pretty sure this my higher self was who put it here, is if you look at the spelling of the word identity, it
Yeah,
puts a dent in the middle of your two eyes and always leaves you with why, because you're blind to the truth now.
that's
So
right.
that's how it's put together. So and they were saying that the identity is like an energy configuration that people grip onto, and sometimes they can be so solidly locked onto an identity or a set of identities. And that's where the reaction usually comes from, and the blame and projection, because it's almost like an identity trying to defend itself. And one of the things that my teams do speak of a lot, they're saying, imagine yourself, you're on an island, you feel you're so safe, you've got your sand, you've got your palm tree, you're good, you're set up. And now your higher self says, would you walk out into the ocean and leave everything behind? And so, and then you sort of imagine yourself doing this, and they say, well, notice the feelings and everything that comes up as you do that. You might feel fear, you might feel afraid. Oh my God, there's nothing underneath my feet now. What's holding me up? Who's protecting me? What else is in the water? All those things. And they said, you're going to get to a point when the island is just going to disappear and you're going to see it go. And you'll think, oh my God, there's nothing around me but ocean around, ocean beneath me. And they were saying, now if you look down, what's the water? That's source. You're literally letting yourself go back into your source self.
Mm.
And they were saying it's a lovely metaphor, because they're saying what's happening with humanity is being very gently asked to let go of the masks, let go of the identities, let go of the grip, let go of everything that you think you are or everything else, because that is just you holding on to monkey bars, refusing to, move into what's real, and you really won't let go. And it could be a
Yeah.
tricky one, because I had many and I like to share this because I think that a lot of people tend to see other people and say, "Oh my goodness, you've got this figure." No, I have gone through and am still going through similar processes. No one is this Messiah-like kind of nonsensical kind of, above it all, because we're all here to do puzzle pieces, and we came here specifically what the teams were saying, to work through particular energetics, to resolve them, to heal them, to bring them back into oneness again. And everyone is working on their patch of the puzzle, so to speak, to remove this whole system of identity, holding on, personality, this whole circus of what humanity has been involved in. And it's very important, because some people, and I know what you mean, because I've had experience of people who so fiercely hold on to identity. It's their
Yeah.
island, and they will not jump off. They will, and that's okay. They don't have to, but it's like saying, well, if you keep on the island, that's all you'll ever know. That's all you'll get to see. So
I like what the llamas say. They said the reason you have so many personal problems is because you think you're a person.
right, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah, that's yeah. Well, it actually brings it to another line here, which comes back to, or kind of marries quite well with what we were talking about before about the living energetics. Because to me, it's the allowance and opening up to the source intelligence, the letting go of all that's getting in its way, so that it can flood through do the healing, take care of everything, reorganize matter, change fields, do all the intelligent things that source energy does or source essence does. And you notice the people that are having the most difficulty are the people that most grip, that most hold on, and
Yeah, yeah,
they're not letting the doors open inside. So I think that's a really nice metaphor to share out there, because I know we've had a lot of people email us saying, "Oh God, this is happening, this is happening." I say, well, actually, it's a lot simpler than you might imagine, but you have to get out of your own way, because your personalities that you build, the whole personality structure, is gripping in the way, and it's not letting you relax. It's not letting this energy come through. And like you say, it also comes back to past life imprints as well, because we bring those forward. They also get in the way, and they also hold things up because of fearful events or things that happen that were quite traumatic. So it is
yeah,
part of the whole thing, but it really does seem to me that it's just, and the simple way my teams and higher self described it, it's like, well, imagine a glass of water, it's full of mud. Now you're going to just introduce pristine water from a well source, and it's just going to ooze that mud out of the top. It's going to displace it, it's going to push it out the way. And you get to feel it, see it, feel like you're living through it as that mud's going to pour out. But eventually, it's going to be fully displaced. And now in your glass is pristine, unified water, which is source energy. And so in a metaphorical way, that's quite a very nice, simple way of that, I think is such a nice way of seeing it, to
yeah.
explain why people are experiencing so much outpouring right now, because it really is being turfed out. It's
Yeah, we're getting that water's pouring in, if you
oh
consider a
yeah.
water spirit,
Yes,
it's
yeah.
unbelievable. I like a long time ago when I was working with some of the llamas, they were talking about a soul merge, and
Mm.
that as a collective, we're moving on this soul merge, and it's like a wave pattern. And you get really high, and then you got to deal with all the crap that came up, then you go down, and then and then and then the energy comes in again, you get higher, and the waves are bigger each time, and you get, and then pretty soon, you're not go dropping down anymore into that lower wave pattern. You're getting, it's almost more like a spiral, but if you can
Yeah.
focus on a wave, it's easier to understand that they're calling it a soul merge, and we're
Mm.
we're actually merging with our heart and soul, which is
Yes.
the
Yeah.
connector to the creator. That's how we and then the other thing I was thinking about too is that humanity needs some kind of a foundation, like universal law, like universal peace, brother, sisterly love, individual freedom, and prosperity for all. Some kind of a pattern that you can apply, a very simple pattern that all leaders can apply it in every institution. And when you step outside of that pattern, you're going to create karma, and always use that as a foundation. And I think what I'm seeing now is that, and especially in the spiritual community, I hate to say it, and the UFO community, that they've just thrown that out the window,
Mm.
and they're operating. It's a very competitive,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's a very backstabbing program going on there, and it's going to sound judgmental, but especially ufology, you've got satanic Luciferian money at the top funding this now. It's infiltrated all institutions, and then you have the posers, the shills, the planned opposition, group, and then you've got military and the other guys, they're
Mm.
controlling everything. But and so they've allowed the well, it's definitely not the cream of the crop are going to the top, because it is a
Yeah.
controlled narrative.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing now is that that's collapsing.
Mm. Mm.
Like all of those,
Very fast. Yeah.
anybody that's strayed away from universal law, and is on they're tapping into the wrong source, and that source is depleting their life force, is depleting. The
Yes.
karmic reaction to their action is being accelerated and amplified.
Yeah.
And it kind of, when you look at those dynamics, and like a lot of the yogis say, you want to get away from karma, don't create it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They say go out in nature and focus on love and joy and bliss until you become it, and
Yeah.
release your old programs and identities. But
Mm.
it's amazing watching the dynamics. I am seeing people that are blowing me away because of
Mm.
the total lack of universal law, and
Mm.
and uh and they're validating behavior by saying I'm in the fifth dimension. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm already in the fifth dimension, so I can take wherever I want from anybody, and there is no karma, so who cares? It's like I don't have to be in integrity. I don't have to be, there's no, it's just like it's really weird. It's almost like, I mean, when I first started experiencing it, it was kind of crazy making because I went, how do you
Mm.
do that? You know,
Yeah.
I don't understand how you function that way.
Yeah.
And where's the enlightenment when it comes to not even understanding, basic karma,
Yes.
action, reaction, or whatever else. But and I know the universe is going to give them whatever lessons they need, which I just
Mm.
release it and I go, well, you have fun with that, but it's just something I've noticed that the old structures, I've kind of noticed that everything is a controlled narrative. I
Mm.
hate to say it, but your leadership, your politicians,
Right.
your all your institutions, religious institutions, everything
Yeah.
is a controlled narrative right now.
Yeah.
And that narrative is coming unglued. It's falling apart and collapsing.
Yeah, and when
And
you think about it, ultimately, the way that it's been that I've experienced myself, and that my communication with my higher self and the teams has been, is they're saying that you can look at it very simply. When you infuse into your source intelligence, your sacred heart core, whatever name you choose to call it, the very core of who you are, the truth of who you are, source intelligence, I call it source intelligence. When you
yeah,
infuse yourself with source intelligence, you literally become benevolence itself. You become compassion. You become all those high qualities. And it's not something you have to effort to do. You just are it now. You
yeah.
behave and you simply act like that. Now, in times before, people relied on a lot of knowledge. They were discerning through mind and information reference. So they would say like, oh, oh, that sounds good because it adds up like this. And no, that doesn't sound good. But one of the things that, and I really like to share this because I think it's very helpful to people. One of the initial visits I ever had with the Arcturians, when I was like, oh yeah, no, when I bilocate, I was really excited, and they would just say, right, I was ready to get going because I was so excited. But they said, right, first things, can you feel our energy? Do you know who we are? So just sit, just feel our energy, discern who we are, what we're about, what we would like to share with you, all those things. Because one of the things that they have been very, very profound about, in my view, is, and I think this is very correct, real discernment is a sensitivity to the true nature of energy within a being. It's not what they say, it's not
Yeah.
what they're doing, where they're pointing, whatever comes out of their mouth, it doesn't matter. What is their energy? Who are they? Where are they right now in their core? Because people can be very slick with their words. They can say a
Oh
lot of
yeah, I've met
fancy
some
things,
here. Met
right?
some
I
here in Hawaii. Yeah.
know. I know. And
Unbelievable.
that's the thing. And what they were saying is, no, 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 forget that. Can you learn to develop your sensitivity to the spectral emission of a being so you can understand who it is you're dealing with, where they're going, what it is they're about? And I sat there, I could feel this elated, joyful energy from them. I said, right, now I get the feeling of who you are. And they said, now you understand. So it's like they were trying to get me to learn that is how you apply energy discernment. It's very simple. It's got
Yeah.
nothing to do with intellectual. Oh yeah, does that add up? What did they say here? You know what I mean? It wasn't like that. It was like, can you just really see a person for who they are? And that's what I see going on, is that the old system that has perpetuated itself on a deception based on fooling people with little packets of information here and there and everything else,
Yeah.
and people picking it up because it sounded good. And, I've seen so many people I've known who've got themselves into so much trouble. I kept saying, look, my feeling is that if you go through ahead with this event, it's going to end up you're going to be flat on your face. So it's your decision, it's your life,
Yeah,
your
yeah.
choice. But every single time it would happen, and they say, "Wow, I wish I could." It's like it's so simple. It's not. Everybody has the ability to do this. Nobody is special. It's an innate source ability that you have. Because you're source energy, you can read all energy. You just have to allow yourself to do it. And, and stop being so intellectual about it and mental about it, because that's going to misguide you. Because I said in a follow-on to that, I said, the trouble with the mind is it's a beautiful instrument, but it's undergoing a process of coming back to be an instrument of the source intelligence, the heart intelligence itself. A little bit like your fingers, if your hand was the center, here's your intellect, here's your physical movement, all the other things that we have as a human being. Once they're extensions of the source intelligence, now they really switch on. Now they become immaculate. Now they do extraordinary things they couldn't do before.
Hmm.
But and I think this is all part of the process is happening. And in doing that, people are being asked and they're being shown examples in their lives of someone who's deceptive, someone who's genuine, and you get to feel the flavor of the energy and the difference, not what they say, not how they present, not anything like that. And I always encourage people, don't listen to what I say. Feel the energy. Is it truthful to you? Do you feel like it's something that you wish to go with or not? That is the place to go from your heart intelligence. I say that, and I just coming back to what you were saying before, I think that is exactly what's coming to the forefront now. The old
Yeah.
system of people relying on those old ways is breaking down, and people are seeing, oh my God, that person was really like that. Didn't see that coming, did you? Or that person was like that. But I always say to people, but if you did sit down, don't worry about devotion and all that kind of stuff. That's not really going to help you. It's okay to sit in your power and decide in your own energy, okay, what's this person really about? What's their energy? Where are they really going? Who are they really connecting with? What are they really doing? All those things. And ask your higher self, if you wish to, your source self, to help you feel the flavor of the energy so you can discern and decide, okay, I see deeper levels that my vision or my mind couldn't see on them. I can see that's not going in a great place, so I'm going to go over here. Very simple decisions like that, I think, are very important.
Yeah, I got caught up in this one in the big picture, and I was tuned into the whale and dolphin energy and all the
Yeah,
incredible stuff happening and the possibilities, the infinite possibilities of tying in the whales, the dolphins, and the UFOs.
yeah,
And that was the dream. And it's like, that old saying Confucius says, man with head in cloud, stumble in ditch. And
right,
and so
right,
I didn't see it. Well, I did see the ditch. I did see the red flags, but
yeah,
I go, well, we can transcend that. We can, but the thing
yeah.
is, it isn't up to you, you know,
Mm,
what people choose. It's really not up to you. And I've
yeah.
seen some choices lately that I've been, careful, you're going to hurt yourself. The
Mm.
we're running out of time, unfortunately, and I think we just scratched the surface.
I know, right? It's
I know we got to get you back on again. Um, I'm going to be traveling, but I'll be back at the ranch next week. And then so we can set up, I'll be in my regular studio then, and we can set
cool.
up I think we should do a part one and part two
Sure, that sounds good. Okay, no
because there's
worries.
so much. We just scratched the surface on this, but
Yeah.
and that's why we teach the classes we do. We teach the self-mastery, intersensitivity training and ambassador training. So you
Ah.
can sense and feel the entities that you're working with.
Mm.
And we have that saying, just because you're dead doesn't mean you're enlightened, and just because you're an alien doesn't mean you're benevolent, because there
Right,
are
right.
some out there you don't want to work with, and it's so important. But I think on that note, is develop your own inner sensitivity,
Mm.
learn to sense the come from of people, what their real agendas are,
Mm.
and trust that inner knowingness, when it
Yes.
comes to you, because they're going to do everything they can to talk you out of it. They're going to tell you everything you want to hear and
Mm.
and talk you out of it right now. But that'll help get us through these shifts and changes we're going through.
Yes, yeah. And just as a very last thing, 'cause I know we're tight on time,
Yeah.
is that I think that is what I feel is the world we're going into, where people's emissions are so strong and the ability to feel another's energy is going to be so prevalent there that skullduggery nonsense deception, it couldn't take hold because you would see it straight like that as soon as it tried to do anything. So that's a very, very big thing I think we're moving into for sure.
Yeah, I think people who have capitalized at the expense of humanity, the earth, their kingdoms are just collapsing right now.
I think so. I think so.
And just because it's outside of universal law. Anyway, what's the best way that people can get in contact with you if they want to sign up for any events or counselings
Yeah.
or shows or anything?
Sure. I mean, we have a site, a Patreon site called Infinite Source Creations, where there's a whole bunch of free meditations you can do. There's also personal ones which we ask for just a small subscription for, which you can pause or do whatever you want whenever you want to do it. But the two most foundational ones, I would say, that lead on to everything else, which is the connection to the Sacred Heart, and particularly in the rhythmic breath to do with breathing with the higher self. Those are free ones. That's number 14 and 15. You can just hop on there and do. So you can do those on there. There's a whole bunch of other things on there. So it's really a platform trying to help people back into the idea. It's not a following platform. I don't want people following me. I'm trying to help people back into their own sovereignty. That's the goal of it, really. It really is. That's the aim. And the other sites we have is I've developed a series of devices which produce living energetics to harmonize spaces and other things like that, which you can see on, it's ICE, which is an acronym for Infinity, Synergy, Energy, and Evolution, which happens to make IC, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then -infynergy.com, so INFYNERGY.com. So that you can see there, but we've got a bit of a waiting list right now. So, because I can't make them fast enough. So, but yeah, you can have a look at those there as well. But those are the two main ways to reach out.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad you came on the show, and we have so much in common. It's amazing.
All right.
Yeah, we'll have to definitely get you back on again. And unfortunately, folks, we're out of time. So just keep an open mind, loving heart, pure intent, and develop that inner sensitivity, and just be kind to each other and the planet.
Definitely.
It's really that simple.
Definitely.
Anyway, have a great evening. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Come join us and start your free trial today. Watch our weekly podcast, As You Wish Talk Radio, with James Gilliland every Saturday, or catch up on past shows. Watch Skywatch videos of UFOs, orbs, and much more. You can also learn about self-mastering, herbalism, and how to ground and shield yourself from negative unseen influences through our many wonderful workshops. So what are you waiting for? Come join the fun. We're waiting for you. And don't forget to visit our wonderful merch store and show your support today.